Alright, so doing my commute back from work today, and I watched this video on YouTube. It's like how millennials are ruining the motorcycle industry. This vlog's nothing about that, but it made me think the reason they said we are is we're not buying new motorcycles. And I'm like, okay, I'm a millennial. Why don't I buy new motorcycles? I actually have bought a new motorcycle, this one right here. But why don't we in masses buy new motorcycles? There's three misconceptions that are created by, one, our parents growing up, two, motorcycle advertising, and three, the motorcycle community itself. And I think those misconceptions are that, one, small cc bikes are only for beginners, two, that a motorcycle has to be fast to be fun, and three, that motorcycles are toys, not means of transportation. On the subject of motorcycles are toys, not means of transportation, I think that thought starts growing up. Maybe not for everybody, but for me, like, my parents were always like, motorcycles are dangerous and they're impractical. They don't make any sense. They just kill you and they have no use. They're just toys. And I thought the same thing even like after I owned my first motorcycle, but I just loved riding so much. Eventually what I did is I just started commuting to work on it just so I could enjoy my commute a little bit more. And eventually what I realized is that I not only was enjoying my commute more, but I got to work faster on my motorcycle. I saved gas riding my motorcycle. I had an easier time parking, and the wear and tear on my motorcycle cost me a hell of a lot less than wear and tear on my car. And I started to realize there's a lot of practical reasons to ride a motorcycle to where it actually makes more sense than driving in a lot of cases. And I started to look at it and I'm like, you know, in hindsight, I really regret buying a new car when I could have bought a cheap, new, reliable motorcycle and used that for all my commuting and travel purposes instead of a car. And even grocery shopping and stuff like that, like, I could do most of it on my motorcycle. In times that I have to haul something a little bit bigger, or let's say it's just a really icy winter day and I'm not able to ride, I could just use public transportation or have like a beater car that I only drive a couple months out of the year and don't put many miles on it. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of practicality to riding versus driving. One thing that always hit me is we commute to work in a car that has 3 empty seats with no one in it. Like, if you really just think about that for what it is, it's kind of crazy. Like, we drive these big vehicles just to transport ourselves, one person. And yeah, I put some blame on the advertising of motorcycle companies as well, even though they're basically shooting themselves in the foot by only using like fun, responsive, exciting as like their main selling points versus reliable, low cost of ownership, gas efficiency. Now, given they are starting to do that, like the NC 700s and the Versys and bikes like this, are bikes that are designed for practicality, are starting to come out, and that's becoming a thing. But that leads us to the next point of discussion, and that is small cc bikes are only for beginners. Even though they are catering more to the practical side of things, they're doing so with these 650s and 1000cc bikes, like the Versus 650, the Versus 1000. And I think that comes into the cost issue for millennials, why they're not purchasing motorcycles. We can't afford high performance motorcycles, but we can afford motorcycles. I think that stems from the idea that a real motorcycle has to be 650 and up, or 1000 cc's and up. for some. And that's just, I think, a huge misconception, and I think it stems from the belief that small CC bikes are only for beginners, which, if you look back in history just a little bit, like, the majority of motorcycles were under 500 cc's. I'm talking like 50s, 60s. I'm not talking, 80s when the 650s and such were kings. But the guy that buys the Honda Civic as his primary driver doesn't get any crap if he buys a Honda Civic over a Mustang. No one's like, oh, you're gonna get bored of that in a year or so. Like, there's no, like, view of like, oh, you're a novice driver if you drive a Honda Civic. No, the guy's just looked at as being, frugal or conservative or practical, like if he owns a Honda Civic. Whereas when you do the same thing with a motorcycle, if you have a CBR 250 versus a CBR 1000 RR, one is seen as a novice machine, not a complete machine, whereas the other is. And I think that's silly. We don't do that for cars, but we do it for motorcycles. And I think it comes with this perception that we're creating, and I think it's partly upon us in the community to maybe start saying, well, it's not a beginner bike, it's an economy bike. Just like a Honda Civic is an economy car and a Mustang is a performance car. I mean, that's the difference. It's not like one's a beginner and one's a performance vehicle, or one's a beginner and one's an experienced vehicle. One's an economy vehicle and the other is a performance vehicle. And I think if you're buying a motorcycle for practical purposes or even fun purposes, like, a lot of people are directed away from getting a 250 or a 300 or a 125 or, a 500 because they're like, oh, those are beginner bikes, I'm gonna get bored of them. And it's like, no, they're actually great motorcycles. They're easier to maintain. They're gonna cost you a hell of a lot less in maintenance over time. You're gonna save a fuckload of gas. The fact is, historically, small CC bikes were and still are the most common bikes. The most widely used to this day motorcycle in the world is the Honda Super Cub. It's a 125cc. Yet here in America, it's a beginner bike. It's a toy bike. It's like, no, it makes a lot of sense to have a small motorcycle. It uses less gas. It's easier to work on. It's lighter. Easier to park. I mean, yeah, big and small bikes each have their own advantages and disadvantages, but to just say the only purpose of a bike to be small is so that it's easy to learn on is pretty insane. I mean, but we put out that perception. I think it deters a lot of people from making the economical choice. I mean, if you're not out to, race around and do stuff like that, you just want a bike to commute on and stuff, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to get anything bigger than a 650. Even the modern 250s can do highway speeds just fine all day. Finally, the idea that a motorcycle has to be fast to be fun I think that's completely absurd. But I definitely believed it. I totally believed it. Like, I'm gonna get bored of this thing if I don't get the excitement, feeling. And, yeah, maybe this bike doesn't, of course, this bike does not excite me with speed whatsoever, but there's other ways a motorcycle can excite you, like getting it as far down in the corner as possible, doing a wheelie, doing a stoppie. There's plenty of things you can do on a slow bike that will excite you. And second of all, just because a bike isn't exciting doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. Like, you can enjoy a walk in the park, you can enjoy a ride on a slow motorcycle. Just saying it's not exciting, or just because a bike isn't exciting, doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It has a different kind of value. It has the value of still feeling in the corners, feeling your vehicle lean, feeling the wind, feeling just the freedom that you get riding a motorcycle. And I really don't think we should be telling people that they're going to get bored of their motorcycle if they get a small motorcycle in a year or so, and it's going to become obsolete. Even if you bought a brand new 250 right away and did get bored of it, it still could be an extremely practical machine for your daily use. In fact, as far as the utility of a small CC bike, you're about to see you don't need a whole lot here, because I'm about to hop on the highway for the rest of the way home. Also, the manufacturers do their part too to make sure that people are always wanting the bigger and better bike, because the bigger and better bikes cost more money. They make more money if they sell a 1000cc bike versus if they sell a 250. And the fact is, this is all you need right here, man. Like, I'm going 60. Fast enough, and look, traffic's slowing up right ahead. Didn't even need 1000ccs to do this. The fact is, this cost 1/4 of what a 1000cc bike costs. I think my reasoning here is also why the Honda Grom is so popular right now. It's perceived as cool, yet it's economical and has a low cost of ownership and is a quality, reliable vehicle. And I think that's why so many people are buying Groms right now. The reason I don't think they're buying like TU 250s and CRF 250Ls and CBR 250s and small CC bikes like that is because they're worried they're going to be shot down, or they're going to become bored with their machine, or their investment's only going to be good for a year and then it's going to be like something to just throw away. When in reality, these small CC bikes are awesome and have a whole plethora of benefits you can't get with a big bike. So, to wrap it up, I don't think it's that millennials aren't, I don't think it's like one of the commenters said, well, millennials aren't buying motorcycles because they can't afford them. I think they're not buying them because they believe they have to buy motorcycles that are unaffordable to them. I think millennials would definitely buy a lot more brand new motorcycles if the affordable motorcycles were, one, marketed to them the right way, two, if it were more of a societal norm to use a motorcycle as daily transportation, and three, that there's a lot of joy to be had on a motorcycle of any speed. You don't have to go fast on a motorcycle to enjoy riding it. And tons of people enjoy riding the Honda Grom. And believe me, the Honda Grom is a lot of things, but fast is not one of them. Hey guys, I'm just arriving home. City's rider out.